Imagine generating $1.3 million a day, headlining a sold-out global tour, and having your face plastered on every billboard from Tokyo to New York, yet being legally stripped of the right to spend a single dime of your own money. Imagine being a 30-year-old mother who has to ask a court-appointed handler for permission to buy a coffee drive, a car, or even change the color of your kitchen cabinets. This was the waking reality for the world's most famous woman, Britney Spears. For 13 years, the pop princess lived inside a legal cage that was marketed to the world as a protective sanctuary, but which she would later describe as a form of state-sanctioned human trafficking. Today, the protective conservatorship hoax is finally collapsing under the weight of the truth. To understand how a 17-year-old girl from Kentwood, Louisiana, became the ultimate victim of her own success, we must look past the flashing cameras of the 2000s and return to the red clay and financial desperation of the early 1980s. Britney Jean Spears was born on December 2nd, 1981 in Macomb, Mississippi. But she was raised in the industrial grit of Kentwood. Her household was defined by two things: a chronic lack of money and her father Jamie's long violent struggle with alcohol. In a small town where opportunities were as scarce as a steady paycheck, Britney's mother, Lynn, recognized early that her middle daughter possessed a specific, eerie kind of presence, the ability to perform without the visible anxiety that anchors most children. At age 5, she was already competing in talent shows. By 8, she was traveling to New York for auditions that would have crushed most adults. She was initially rejected by Disney's Mickey Mouse Club for being too young, but the rejection didn't stop the machine. She spent the next 2 years training at the Professional Performing Arts School in Manhattan, living in a squalid apartment, and learning the brutal choreography of professional rejection. When she finally made the cast of the MMC at age 10, she was placed into a high-pressure star factory alongside future icons like Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, and Ryan Gosling. This wasn't a playground. It was a high-stakes corporate environment designed to manufacture the next generation of American icons. By the time the show was canceled, the girl was no longer a child. She was a highly trained professional performer with an ironclad work ethic and a soul that had already been conditioned to equate her worth with her productivity. By 1998, the Golden Illusion achieved terminal velocity. At 16, Britney walked onto a soundstage in a schoolgirl outfit and delivered, Baby, One More Time. It wasn't just a pop song. It was a cultural, nuclear event that sold over 10 million copies. The marketing strategies engineered by Jive Records required her to occupy a toxic, commercially lucrative contradiction. She was presented as the girl next door in interviews, while being photographed and choreographed in ways that emphasized a sexuality she was legally too young to consent to. She did not design this paradox. She simply inhabited it because the adults in the room, the label executives, the managers, and her own parents had determined that this specific brand of innocent provocation was the highest returning investment in music history. The press treatment of Britney during this era was a clinical exercise in social objectification. On national television, the grown men in suits asked her forensic questions about her virginity, her breasts, and her dating life. She answered them with a practiced robotic smile, knowing that a single display of discomfort or anger would be branded as diva behavior or instability. And she learned before she was old enough to drive a car that her survival in the industry depended on absorbing constant invasive intrusion without resistance. In 2000, Oops, I Did It Again sold 1.3 million copies in its first week alone, a record for a female artist that stood for 15 years. She was a one-woman stimulus package for the American economy, but she was drifting further away from any human reality. She was 20 years old, worth $100 million, and yet she had no one to tell her that it was okay to be tired. She was the queen of the world, but her throne was built on a foundation of professional exhaustion. The shattering began in 2004, the moment the polished commodity tried to have a real life. Her marriage to Kevin Federline and the rapid succession of her two sons, Sean Preston and Jaden James, created a biological and psychological pressure cooker. The tabloid industry of the mid-2000s had become a multi-billion-dollar predator that viewed Britney Spears as its primary target. A single photo of her, acting crazy, was worth more than a teacher's annual salary. In 2007, the feedback loop became fatal. Paparazzi followed her every move, driving her off the road, blinding her with flashes in the dead of night and waiting for the exact moment she would break. In February 2007, in a Tarzana hair salon, the world watched the ultimate act of radical defiance. Britney Spears took a pair of clippers and shaved her head. To the media, it was a breakdown. To Britney, it was a desperate attempt to destroy the very hair that the industry used to sell her image. She was trying to become ugly, so the world would finally stop looking. When she attacked a paparazzi's SUV with a green umbrella weeks later, she wasn't a villain. She was a victim of a 10-year siege who had finally snapped. She was placed under an involuntary psychiatric hold, a 5150, and in the darkness of that state-mandated silence, her father Jamie walked into a courthouse and walked out with the keys to her entire life. The world laughed at the umbrella, never realizing it was the only weapon she had left against a billion-dollar monster. In February 2008, the conservatorship was established. It was supposed to be a temporary emergency measure to protect a woman in a crisis. It lasted 4,822 days. Under the terms of this legal cage, Britney Spears became a non-person. For 13 years, she was denied the right to marry, the right to vote, or the right to have her own lawyer. She was forced to perform a grueling Las Vegas residency that generated $140 million in revenue, yet she was restricted to a $2,000 per week allowance. The people protecting her were the ones that collecting $16,000 a month salaries from her estate. She was deemed capable of headlining 248 shows, managing complex choreography and entertaining tens of thousands of people, but the same legal system deemed her incapable of deciding what she wanted for dinner. The micro details of this era reveal a man-made hell. Britney later testified that she was forced to take lithium, a powerful medication for bipolar disorder, against her will, leaving her disoriented and unable to hold a conversation. She revealed that her father and his legal team had forced her to maintain an IUD intrauterine device to prevent her from having more children, a direct violation of her fundamental reproductive rights. She lived in a house that was bugged with recording devices. Her every phone call and every private conversation was transcribed and reviewed by her father. The hoax was that this was a protective measure. The reality was that it was a highly profitable, state-sanctioned hostage situation. She was a billionaire performing for the masses while living in a high-security cell in her own bedroom. The unraveling of the hoax began in the dark corners of the internet. The hashtag Free Britney movement, once dismissed by the media as a group of fringe conspiracy theorists, began to parse her social media posts for coded signals of distress. They noticed the repetition of her outfits, the vacant look in her eyes, and the strange, stilted nature of her captions. They organized a protest outside the Los Angeles Superior Court, turning a private legal battle into a global human rights issue. In June 2021, the world finally heard the truth. In 24 minutes of unscripted rapid-fire testimony, Britney Spears dismantled the 13-year illusion. She didn't read from a PR script. She spoke from the wreckage of a stolen life. "I just want my life back," she told the judge. "I've lied and told the whole world I'm okay and I'm happy. It's a lie. I'm traumatized." In November 2021, Judge Brenda Penny finally signed the document that ended the cage. Britney Spears was free for the first time since she was 16 years old. In 2023, she released her memoir, The Woman in Me, providing a forensic account of the years inside the hoax. She revealed the betrayal of her sister Jamie Lynn, the cruelty of a mother who helped engineer the conservatorship, and the absolute tyranny of a father who viewed his daughter a cash cow rather than a human being. The book sold 1.1 million copies in its first week. Not because the world wanted gossip, but because the world finally realized they had been complicit in the destruction of an American icon. She didn't write the book to be a star. She wrote it to prove that she was still there. Today at 44, Britney Spears is navigating the shards of a life that was broken into a million pieces by the fame machine. She remains largely private, refusing to return to the touring cycle that nearly killed her. She spends her days dancing in her living room, an act that the media still tries to mock, but which her fans recognize as the only way she knows how to reclaim her body. She is a woman in a state of high-octane healing, working through the trauma of being a commercial product for 30 years. Her story is the ultimate cautionary tale of the 21st century, a reminder that the higher the pedestal, the more dangerous the fall. The twilight angle of Britney Spears is one of somber reflection. We see her now as a woman who outran the ultimate trap. She won the battle against the court, the Church of Fame, and her own family. She is the architecture of a new era, where child stars are finally beginning to speak out against the factories that manufactured them. She didn't just save herself. She opened the door for an entire generation to demand their humanity back. She remains the undisputed queen of pop, but her crown is no longer for sale to the highest bidder. The residency is over. The hoax is dead. The woman is finally irrevocably free. What lesson can we take from the survival of Britney Spears? Perhaps it is that we should look more closely at the cost of our entertainment. Behind every perfect pop anthem and every airbrushed magazine cover is a human being who is allowed to be tired, allowed to be angry, and allowed to be flawed. We spent a decade mocking her breakdown in 2007, never realizing that we were the ones who were broken. Britney Spears is a mirror for our own obsession with perfection and our forensic cruelty toward those who fail to maintain it. Which Britney song defined your youth? Does knowing the truth about the lithium and the IUD change how you hear those lyrics now? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us celebrate the girl from Kentwood who refused to let the machine have the last word. Tom Cruise had the mission. Michael Jackson had the moonwalk. But Britney Spears had the courage to stay alive. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the heart of a survivor. If you want more stories that pull back the layers of Hollywood to find the human truth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We will see you in the next one where the secrets are deep and the truth is always cinematic. The flashing lights will continue to search for the next victim. They will promise them the world and they will ask for their soul in exchange for a platinum record. But we will remember Britney. We will remember the girl who shaved her head to show the world that she wasn't for sale. The throne is empty, the residency is finished, but the soul remains. And the silence for the first time in 40 years is peaceful. The princess is gone. The woman is here, and she is never going back to the cage.